The game I chose to play is called Depression Quest. It is an interactive game that gives the player an opportunity to choose options on the character's behalf that pertains to their behavior. This game follows the story of an individual who suffers from depression. It tells you about what their everyday looks like and gives you choices to make about their actions. The player is responsible for making decisions about their actions until the game ends. The end goal of this game is to outline what living with depression is like without glorifying the disease, while also showing how every decision you make can affect your mental state. There are two main points to take away from this game. One point is to show people who may not suffer from depression how people with the illness can function and help end the stigma around the disease. The other point of the game is to show others who do suffer that they are not alone when they are going through this. Throughout the game, the player is given the opportunity to choose from 3 or more options pertaining to a decision the character should make. Whenever the player is given the chance to choose an option, the better of the options is always crossed out, and it only gives you the chance to pick an answer that would not be considered the best decision to make. This would be an example of an enthymeme. The player is under the impression that they are making every decision for the character through the options they are given. But each time a scenario arises that the player has to choose an action, there is at least one option crossed out that could be considered the good option. Bogus ideas of procedural rhetoric play an important role in this game. Throughout this game, there is a specific process one must follow in order to reach the end. After each scenario is given, the player must choose how they want their character to behave. Bogus introduces us to Jeanette Murray. Murray talks about the procedural environments. She argues that they are appealing to us not just because they exhibit rule-generated behavior, but because we can induce that behavior. What I was able to take away from this was that we as players enjoy games such as this one because we have the opportunity to manipulate the outcome and change the narrative of the story. Another idea Bogus introduces is the idea of a more sophisticated procedural rhetoric. He says that sometimes we think of interactivity as producing user empowerment. The more interactive the system, the more the user can do, and the better the experience. Throughout this game, I found it kind of annoying that the player is unable to choose the better option, but as I finished playing, and as I played again, I realized that was the entire point. The game wanted me to understand how choosing some bad decisions could still allow me to come out on top. Bogus also discusses the idea of game controls. A quote that stuck out while playing this game about this concept was, "We explore the possibility space its rules afford by manipulating the game's controls." In the game, the player might be tempted to pick the worst of the options given, just to see how the end results would differ if they chose to pick good options only. Like I talked about previously, the player is able to make decisions on the character's behalf. Bogus brings up the idea that the game's controls and feedback systems makes it difficult for the player to keep track of the decisions they have already made, and to see the aggregated effects of those decisions. While playing this game, I found myself agreeing and disagreeing with this statement at the same time. The first time I play it, it would sometimes forget what decision I made, but I think that was because I took the game a little too fast. Once I played for a second time, I read through each scenario thoroughly and realized at the beginning of each new day, it refreshes the player's memory on what their previous decision was. It also provides you with 3 statements at the bottom of each page to remind you what stage you're in at your life. As the game continues, each decision you make has an effect on the character's everyday life. If you end up choosing only bad decisions, your final outcome will reflect those decisions and can cause your character to become and stay severely depressed. But if you're like me and chose mostly good options, the end of the game reflects on those decisions your character has made. Although the game never seems to end with your depression being gone, it acknowledges the effort you've made in getting help. This game is all about procedure. You are given a scenario, you are given actions that you must choose from, and you are given outcomes. It was easy to find connections from this game that have to do with procedural rhetoric, since procedure plays a huge role in finishing the game. The end of the game gives you one final story about your journey, and reminds you of the progress that you've made. Although this game wasn't a very fun one to play, it teaches this player an important message, and it was a good way to connect what we're reading in procedural rhetoric to an actual game.